Hi, gun people. So I'm researching on this gun confiscation in New Orleans, where they beat up that little old lady, to add to my Earning the Hate playlist, and I come up with this gun violence thing, an epidemic. So I found this interesting. I didn't watch it all the way through, so I'm going to respond as they talk.
Gun violence.
40 million handguns.
Firearm injuries represent an epidemic in
epidemic of gun violence.
Join us in this campaign to reduce gun violence.
The only thing that stops a bad guy with a gun,
another mass shooting,
is it.
Gun violence is no such thing. People are violent, and they use guns with their violence. They're violent without guns. They are violent in cars, with gas, knives, baseball bats, fists. People are violent. Guns are not.
Good guy
Shooting rampage. 316 people are shot every single day.
That's probably a fake stat. I didn't look it up. He's probably counting how many cops are killing unarmed people. But that's not called gun violence. That's called officer safety.
Gun violence. A topic that's deeply divisive in America. A country where guns are embedded in everyday life.
It's embedded in everyday life because it's in our history. The British and the Redcoats tried to take our right to defend ourselves. They wanted to be tyrannical. They didn't want the public armed because they know the public armed aren't going to be sheep and victims. They will fight back. And any bully or anybody with power would always rather unarmed victims.
As of 2018, it was estimated that there are approximately 400 million civilian-owned guns in America.
Good. I wish there was 800 million.
That means there are more guns than there are people or cars in the U.S.
Good. We should have even more guns.
By comparison, Americans own more guns per capita than any other country, accounting for about 40% of the world's total.
Gee, that's an odd statistic. America owns more guns. Wow. That's really bad. America gives more money. America gives more aid. America has more advancement. America has the lowest poverty. America is where all these other countries they want to come to. Gee, it must be the guns' fault. That's it.
Total gun ownership. And that number is likely to increase. Since 2008, the U.S. firearm industry's worth grew 232%, making it a $63.5 billion industry.
Yeah, $63 billion industry. Guess who makes a lot of money in taxes off that? Yeah, the same government that wants to disarm you.
In 2020. But the reason for division over gun ownership isn't just because the U.S. owns the most guns. It's because it also has the highest rate of mass shootings, gun-related homicides, and firearm suicides.
Okay, so they don't cover in here, not the part that I watched. Maybe they'll cover to the end. But I can almost guarantee, because it's a left-wing bullshit article to make people scared of guns, they don't cover how many people's lives are saved by guns. They don't cover how cops get to save their lives every day by using a gun. No. Gun violence is all guns are bad except for government and cops.
Among similarly developed nations.
Our politics is just not being incentivized to pay attention to the things that would actually reduce gun violence.
Reduce gun violence. How about accountability? How about blaming the people that are using guns? How about going after and charging people with the 30,000 gun laws on the books? How about we do that? No, Rick. The answer is to disarm law-abiding citizens so they become victims, just like they did in Katrina, which another video I'll be posting soon.
This is the job of public health, to help the most.
Nothing to do with public health. Are you kidding me? Who believes the CDC? Who thinks the CDC is about public health? Who wants to listen to the CDC lie to us again?
Vulnerable, to stand up for them.
So how did we get here? How has the
Those are my people there. Come and take it. Go, boys!
Right to own a gun become a divisive American ideal? And of all the proposed solutions, what do experts say could effectively reduce gun violence in the U.S.?
You know what would reduce gun violence? More people having guns. Criminals they don't want to go against hard. That's why all the mass shootings happen at schools where no guns are allowed, in gun-free zones. The states with the strictest gun controls have the most gun violence. That's a little stat they probably won't add in here.
Around the 19th century, there were at least 9 countries that had the right to bear arms in their constitution.
Wow, only 9.
But as years passed, most of these countries
Notice the places that don't have it are all the communist socialist countries. If you don't think socialism and communism are the same, the places that don't have guns are all communist or socialist.
made changes revoking or limiting gun rights. As of 2021, only 3 countries cite the right to bear arms in their constitution, and the United States is one of them.
The Second Amendment activism was not at the center of early gun culture, and for a long time, most people in the U.S.
Boston University School, another college-educated idiot that only believes what she's told.
owned guns, but it was really for hunting, target shooting. It was associated.
That's so bullshit. They did not put the second in for target and hunting. The founders put it in after they liberated a country from a tyrannical government. We just fought for our freedom using guns. That's why the Second Amendment was there. It had nothing to do with hunting. Although it does include hunting as a way to be self-sufficient and not relying on government. Government wants us relying on them, which is why they want the guns, and they want to be the only ones with the guns, because you are always at the will of the person with the gun if you don't have one.
It was masculinity, so it was.
But your little pink panty, rainbow flag, college-educated idiot ass wants to vote us into freaking a third world country.
Kind of a rite of passage, but it was not about rights and the law.
Yeah, you're an idiot.
The idea of gun control didn't really enter the national conversation until 1934, following a mass shooting.
That's not true either. Since we've had guns, politicians have always wanted to take them. Always. There has been somebody that didn't want guns.
In Chicago. Most gun regulation laws were passed without much opposition until 1968, when President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Gun Control Act. But this started to change years later when the NRA became an advocacy organization centered on the Second Amendment.
That's when the NRA actually used to spend money on fighting for gun rights. Now it's become a political bullshit organization that spends money on private jets, big salaries, $600,000 for the president of the NRA so he can buy suits. Anybody giving money to the NRA is a fool. The NRA does not guarantee our right to have a gun. I don't give them money. I don't support them. I think they're a piece of shit organization that just rip off and play on gun owners. But that's another note.
Bringing with it a huge influx of money.
It really changed after the Cincinnati Revolt in 1977 when there was a coup inside of the NRA. Second Amendment activists took the NRA over, and then in the 2000s it switched again to being mostly Republican.
Oh, so NRA is mostly Republican. Here we go. Who raise your hand if you think this girl's a Republican. Raise your hand if you think she's neutral. Whatever.
Gun lobbying organization.
Nowadays, the NRA spends between $2 to $5 million annually lobbying for gun rights.
Well, they spend $4 million on travel and hotels for their president and vice president.
And during the 2020 elections alone, the association spent $29 million in political campaigns.
And we believe
$29 million in Camille, and they're making it seem like it's a big deal. That's the problem with guns. $29 million. Biden just gave freaking almost $1 trillion to Ukraine. He's getting kickbacks, and that's not a problem. But $29 million to preserve the right of the people to have a firearm for self-defense and self-preservation, that's a problem. Well, that's because you're an idiot if you believe that.
in freedom and liberty and the right to keep and bear arms.
In 1983, the CDC really started looking at gun violence as a public health problem.
CDC, another federal left-wing organization trying to get money and grants and disarm the American public so they can push their CDC bullshit lies about viruses and vaccines and whatever else they want to lie about, so they'll help the government get the guns from good people who can defend themselves.
When they created the Violence Epidemiology Branch.
The
Violent Epidemiology Branch? That's a great branch of the government. How much money did that cost?
NRA looked at this and they said, if you do this research, it's going to end up in everyone losing their guns. It's either the research or your guns. You can't have both. You've got to decide.
I don't believe the NRA said that for a second. I mean, that's just not true. I don't give a shit what research you do. If the research is fair, it's going to come out. Guns create freedom. Guns create equity for the less, for the old, for the women, for the people that can't defend themselves, for good people to fight off bad people. Guns are always good. The more there are, the better. Government will never admit it because they like to be the only one that has the guns. Just like all communist and socialist countries are. Government's the only one with guns.
This was misinformation, but it was a powerful strategy.
Misinformation. Really? You're freaking talking for a college in this freaking bullshit ABC report? And you're talking about misinformation? That's the pot calling the kettle black.
For the NRA.
Eventually, Congress deferred funding for gun violence research by passing the Dickey Amendment in 1996, which prohibited the CDC from using federal funding to advocate or promote gun control. After its implementation, the CDC spent more than 20 years without the resources to conduct significant research.
Oh, poor CDC. Because we know if we just give them more money, they'll tell us the truth and they'll help us. Because they're really concerned about helping us. Okay.
Research on gun violence.
It was a threat. It was a shot across the bow.
That had big impacts, particularly in the field of data collection. If you're getting your data collection done by, a private foundation or, some other...
Oh, if you get it done by a private foundation like the NRA, it's bad data. But if a place like CDC, the federal government, gets the data, then it's good. Yeah, you're an idiot too. You voted for Biden, I guarantee you.
Source, you don't have what researchers have described to me as the full faith and credit of the U.S. government behind it. That makes it easier if you have that full faith and credit to...
Who the hell has faith and credit in the U.S. government except for a dumbass?
Get agencies and get states on board and get that data collected.
The need for research was finally recognized shortly after the mass school shooting in Parkland, Florida, that left 17 dead in 2018. A clarification was made to the Dickey Amendment, allowing the CDC to conduct research on the causes of gun violence.
This research is going to find those ways that we can keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them.
You're full of shit. That is such a lie, people. 30,000 gun laws on the books and gun violence is out of control is what they're saying, gun violence. It's bad people getting guns and doing violence is out of control with 30,000 books. How many you want? 60,000? You want 200,000? I know. Let's just take all the guns from good people and then you'll be safe. Well, that's because you're an idiot.
Without infringing on the rights of those people who should.
Liberals don't give a shit about rights. They care about their feelings.
But in order to understand how we can potentially reduce gun violence, let's first dive into the numbers around it. Each year, approximately
the numbers that they want to give us.
40,000 people die in America from firearm injuries.
Firearm injuries, 40,000. They're not saying how, whether somebody shot, whether the cops shot, whether the cops got their gun taken from, whether the cops left their car open and somebody stole their AR and shot somebody. 40,000. Okay, that sounds really bad. Oh my God, we should just take guns from everybody. That'll fix it.
The U.S. saw the peak of gun ownership in 1993, with an estimated 51% of households owning a gun.
Good. That's really low. I would like it much more at 75 or 80%.
That same year, gun homicides also reached its peak.
Wow. Maybe gun homicide. They're calling gun homicides probably when people defend themselves. Somebody breaks in my house, I shoot them. They go, oh, that's a gun homicide. Guns are bad. That's probably what they're counting, but they don't really explain that.
When all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah. Oh, so when all you have is a hammer, everything looks like a nail. That's bad for the citizens owning guns, but it's not bad when cops have a gun and it's their hammer and they treat citizens as a nail. That's different, right? Left-wing idiots.
When you have easy access to guns and you have lots of guns available to you, more problems look like problems that can get solved with them. There very much is a correlation between the number of guns in a place and the number of gun deaths in a place.
Well, no shit. If all we had was knives, there would be a correlation of the number of knives and the number of knife injuries. And if all we had was water around everything, there would be a correlation of the more water, the more drownings we have. Well, no shit, Dr. Brain Surgeon.
And that's something that you can see consistently across the board year after year. The places that have more guns have more gun deaths.
That's absolutely bullshit, because California and New York have strict gun laws, and you can barely own a gun. And they disable a lot of guns that you can't own. And their gun violence is higher than anywhere. Another false stat that there's no way to prove it. We'll just put up these fancy graphs and have women explain things, and nobody will be able to challenge it because they don't want to be called a sexist or something. And we'll just go along and say, this is a really good report. We should take the guns.
But if you look at just the injuries and deaths, you're missing a very big part of the problem.
Oh, my God. So this guy's going to bring in all the families. What about all the families from the illegals that come in when they kill somebody? What about the dude that's on the run in Texas right now that killed the whole family next door? He was an illegal, been deported 4 times. What about him? Oh, no, he's not the problem. We should open our borders. The problem is legal gun owners. It's just ludicrous.
For every individual life that's destroyed, there's a family that's destroyed. There's a community that's shattered.
Same community when cops go in and shoot unarmed people? Is that the same community and victims you're talking about?
Cost of anxiety, of fear and worry.
Anxiety and fear, like when the cops show up because they shoot everybody, that everybody's nervous when cops show up? Is that the fear and anxiety you're talking about?
Is tremendous.
And while most gun owners cite safety and protection as their reason for owning a firearm, research shows that having a gun in your home doesn't necessarily keep you safer.
Doesn't necessarily. That sounds like a pretty good fact. It doesn't necessarily keep you safe. Wow, that's a really good stat. I'll have to use that.
What we found was that not only does having a gun in your home not make you safer, but it increases the risk that someone in your family will be killed by a gun, will be a victim of gun homicide, and it increases it hugely. Not by 10, 15, 20, 25%, not by 100%, by 200%.
The source of this is the New England Journal of Medicine. Really? That's the source? Who thinks that they included every time a gun was used in self-defense in a home? Who thinks they included that or somehow just didn't count that?
The risk that someone in your family will be shot and killed with a gun triples. And the risk that someone in your family will commit suicide with a gun goes up 400%.
Wow, what's the source for this one? Sesame Street? Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's the New England Journal of Medicine again.
It's multiplied 5-fold.
Raise your hand if you think the New England Journal of Medicine believes in the Second Amendment and think people ought to own guns. If your hand's up, you're an idiot. It's another left-wing bullshit organization promoting an agenda with lies.
And suicides make up the largest portion of firearm deaths.
Oh, so if somebody wants to kill themselves, they use a gun, it's the gun's fault. It's not that they jump off bridges. Are we going to start tearing down bridges because people jump off bridges? If we run our car into a wall, are we going to take away cars? Stupid.
2/3 of all gun deaths in America are suicides.
How many of those are connected by 3-letter agencies and we're told they're suicides? Like Epstein.
And most of the people that are killing themselves with guns in the U.S. are older white men who are gun owners.
Well, then you ought to be happy. If gun owners are just killing themselves, you guys ought to be happy. That means less gun owners. Are you kidding me?
Then you have another 1/3 that are homicides. When you're talking about the homicides, you're predominantly talking about younger black men.
Whoa, she broke the liberal code. She said young black men create 1/3 of all gun crime and homicides? Ooh, wow.
And when you talk about women being killed in homicides, you're predominantly talking about domestic violence.
When we
Didn't give a number.
shift to mass shootings, they only account for a small percentage of gun deaths
All we hear is mass shootings, and now they're saying they're only a small percentage.
each year. But they've also become more common and more deadly in recent years.
And they name, when a cop shoots 6 people, it's a mass shooting.
The politics of gun violence has, over the last couple decades, really centered around things like mass shootings, terrorism, accidental gun deaths in small children. But if you actually go and look at the data, again, what you find is that those are not making up the majority of gun violence deaths. They're not even making up a significant minority.
ABC News combined forces with the Gun Violence Archive to document a week's worth of gun violence and found that in a single week,
1 week of violence. I want to hear this stat.
in July 2021, there were more than 1,000 incidents of gun violence across 47 states.
47 states. Why not 50 states?
That's about 1 every 10 minutes. And in those incidents, more than 400 people were killed.
In a year?
Despite the gap in federal research, limited data shows that implementation of certain gun regulations and laws have been effective at a state level. For example, in Indiana, the red flag law has been associated with a 7.5% reduction in firearm suicide.
Total bullshit. Now, this may be true that they're counting every time a family member says, hey, so-and-so's going to kill himself and he's got a gun, and they go get his gun. They don't say whether he killed himself with a different way, or whether they prevented it, or whether it was true. They're just counting the number of times they went and got a gun because a family member said somebody wants to commit suicide. I guarantee you, without knowing a stat, that's how they're getting this. Red flag laws are horrible. It's a way to subvert the Constitution. It's a way to give everyone power that doesn't like guns to call in on people with guns. If I don't like you, you got a gun, I'm scared, I think you're a threat, cops come and take your guns, you got to prove to get them back. It's total bullshit. No red flag law should exist. It's totally unconstitutional. It would be like pre-crime. I think somebody's going to rob a bank. Okay, we'll go arrest him, keep him in jail for a week because he might rob a bank and you think he will. That's exactly what they're doing with this red flag bullshit law.
It's a decade after it was implemented. Even other methods like permit laws or ceasefire programs have had some success in individual.
Has had some success. Bullshit. The states that there's plenty of stats out there, the states that have gone to constitutional carry where you don't need a permit, there has been no change in crazy shootings because more people carry guns. As a fact, most crime ends up going down in those places.
Cities. But the research is mixed. One study found that
the research is mixed, meaning we can't skew it to meet our objective.
States can reduce homicide rates just by implementing 3 laws.
Universal background checks are laws that prevent anyone with a criminal record.
Total bullshit. Every gun crime that you see on every news station is committed by a guy who either didn't go buy the gun, didn't go get a background check, or passed the background check. Almost all the mass shootings, the people have owned the guns lawfully, and they had to go through a background. A background check is nothing but a way to do gun registration, period.
From buying a weapon. May issue laws give discretion to the police to...
Discretion of the police on guns is a bad idea. Discretion to government at any time is a bad idea.
Actually refuse to issue a concealed carry permit. Valid misdemeanor laws basically prevent someone who has been convicted of an interpersonal violence misdemeanor from buying a gun.
So it started where you had to be a convicted felon and do prison time. Then it went to any felony, writing a bad check, to now misdemeanors. Pretty soon it'll be any crime. But none of those things make it so you can't get welfare, make it so you can't get government aid, make it so you can't come into the country illegal. No. Open borders and welfare for everybody. But those damn patriot, gun-loving Americans, they're the enemy. We have to get their guns.
We found that a combination of all 3 laws reduced firearm homicide rates by 29%.
Total bullshit. How did you find that? Where's your source? There is not even a source listed.
In 2019, it means that 4,200 people would have
been saved. Oh, now we're going to start using stats on what woulda, coulda, maybe, shoulda didn't happen.
Been saved.
But none of these methods on their own are perfect. And as some states loosen the reins on gun regulation, expanding the research on gun violence could be our most useful tool in reducing it.
Having more...
They don't want useful tools, and they don't want real data. They want the guns, period.
Consistent data and more long-term sets of data. Those things really can help us find solutions.
Most gun owners actually support gun violence prevention.
Who thinks either of these women has ever owned a gun, held a gun, or fired a gun? Raise your hand if you think they went out and fired a gun. Of course they haven't.
Laws. Over 90% of gun owners support universal background checks. They overwhelm.
I don't support them, and I don't believe that 90%. I don't think there's that many stupid, dumbass gun owners that believe that shit.
We support violence misdemeanor laws, red flag laws.
Nobody should be supporting red flag laws. That is the biggest scam and lie and backdoor confiscation of lawful gun owners taking their guns away. It's bullshit. It's a lack of due process. They take your gun and then you have to fight to get them back. That's not due process. The government is supposed to prove their case in order to infringe on a citizen's rights and freedoms.
And really what's interesting is that they don't know that others do. They're influenced by hearing the vocal minority all the time.
We can find ways to keep guns out of the hands of people who shouldn't have them without.
I like how they wanted to show a really non-biased side on this and have somebody giving a counterpoint that was pro-gun. Oh, I'm sorry. This is ABC News. They just want to push their agenda. They don't want dissension. They'll call that fact-checking and censorship and hate speech or something if you say something against their agenda.
Without infringing on the rights of law-abiding gun owners. And that gives us so many ways forward if we work on it together, if we use the science, and if we focus on prevention. This is a problem we can solve.
You're an idiot. All right. Anyway, we'll end that there. I think this is total bullshit. I found this on ABC News. Where the hell is this? At large, Texas mass shooter. So when I was looking for this is how this video came up on the Texas shooter. This Texas shooter, he's been deported 4 times. Had guns. Had lots of guns. Went next door. Shot a bunch of illegals who were living next door. And all people want to say is the one child was 8 years old. It's a they were all illegal. Illegals killing illegals with guns, which violated all the gun laws. And the answer from the left, we need more gun laws. Perfect. We'll end that there.